You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is U.S. Congressman Neil Abercrombie. Although he has a busy schedule, he's still involved in the community, serving on the boards of the Nu'uanu YMCA, the Hawaii Special Olympics, the Epilepsy Foundation of America, Friends of Father Damien, Variety Club Tent 50, the Life Foundation for AIDS Foundation of Hawaii, and Amnesty International.
So that's a super long list she just read there. How are you?
It's kind of like a partial list, actually.
Yeah. I mean, how are you organizing your time with this? What's your average day like? When do you spend time community service? When do you spend time public service?
I have no life. I'm not on the board. One of the ways to do it is I'm not on the boards of a lot of those organizations anymore because in my position at Congress, I don't want anybody to think that I have a conflict of interest. Like if I'm trying to raise money for the YMCA, people might say, oh, well, if I don't give money to the YMCA, then maybe he won't help me with my project or something like that. Now, I don't think anybody actually believes that, but part of the difficulty with this is public life these days is what's called the appearance of conflict. And, of course, I advocate for people all the time. One of the ways you deal with that is you be quite open about it. I mean, I'm a big supporter of the YMCA. I'm a big supporter, and I've helped get federal dollars for the YMCA. But I don't serve on the boards formally anymore so that nobody can accuse me of saying, well, you got it because you're a member of the board. No, I got it for them because I know what the YMCA does. And I'm happy to try and help. And I try to help the Epilepsy Society, and because I suffered from epilepsy myself as an adult, and all kinds of things like that. I do that. I work the Congressional Arts Caucus right now, where we encourage young people to present their art and their art teachers. And thanks to the hotels and the airlines, we're able to take the winners and their teachers up to Washington and put their winning project on the walls of the Capitol, and that kind of thing. So it gives me, I guess, a sense of purpose. I think before we started the program, I was saying that I would come to a meeting and I'd see something that really needed to be done, like helping to get a capital campaign under for the YMCA because maybe an area is underserved, like out in Leeward, Oahu, or Waianae. And I thought to myself, but if I don't do it, who's going to do it? I'd look around the room sometimes and not everybody was raising their hand. So it's always been very difficult for me, maybe because of the way I was raised. My mom and dad, their view always is that you shouldn't want somebody else to do something that you know you should be doing yourself. And so if I got enthusiastic about something, I tended to jump in and then try to put my paddle in the water and pull deep with everybody else.
Are you able to share a story about an experience that you've had? I know you had mentioned, some results that you had gotten with your involvement with these organizations, but maybe a short story of how it really helped or changed someone's life or many people's lives just from you getting involved.
Oh, I don't know if I could say anything that was associated just with me being involved, but being able to join with other people to accomplish something. I think maybe one of the things I could talk about is what we did, the Friends of Father Damien that you mentioned there. That was a good example of something that came into existence for a specific purpose, and then when it was finished, it disbanded, and you could go to other things. What Friends of Father Damien did was to work to raise money and to get the ability to refurbish and preserve Father Damien's church, St. Philomena, over at Kalapapa. No, not many people are ever going to see it. Not many people are ever necessarily going to even desire to go over to Kalapapa, but many people understood what Father Damien stood for, what Father Damien meant, particularly to Hansen's disease patients that are still with us today, what are called the last remnants. You call human beings remnants of the population or the Hansen's disease population that was discriminated against right up into our time, in the time when you guys were born. This is again something that is in 1800s or something like that with Father Damien, but right up into the middle of the 20th century, discrimination was there, misunderstanding, fear, anxiety about about leprosy and about Hansen's disease patients. And so we restored that church. We raised the money for it. We helped get it done. The patients, we work with the patients. To us, it was very, very important that the symbol of Father Damien be respected, and that we in the restoration of that church, it's not that a lot of people will ever go to the church. It's not that it's a great architectural monument. It's not that it'll have enormous historical importance as architecture or as a church building, but it had enormous meaning in terms of what Father Damien did for human beings and what it meant to us, what he meant to us in terms of giving a living lesson to us about reaching out to other human beings. So I was very happy to be a part of that Friends of Father Damien group.
So in the last minute of this show, what words of advice would you give those that are maybe thinking about a life of public service?
Well,
why should they do it?
I don't know if I can ever give you advice, but I can tell you some of the lessons I've learned. One of the lessons is there's only one thing worse in life and politics than being wrong, and that's being right. People will forgive you for being wrong. They very seldom forgive you for being right. It generally means you were out ahead on something and maybe saying things and doing things that were not so popular. But you could see what needed to be done and you were willing to stand up for it. And the other thing I think that I would say about it is don't do anything for gratitude's sake. Do it for its own sake. If you cannot get satisfaction, like this program and like the motivation that you have for this, if you're in business, if you're trying to succeed at something, if you can't do it for its own sake, if you're looking for accolades, if you're looking for admiration, if you're looking for gratitude, get a dog. You know, that dog will love you without reservation. You've got to do things for yourself because you get the satisfaction from the doing it. And if other people approve of it, if they think it's terrific, oh, that's a bonus. That's great. So never expect gratitude. That's the first rule. The second rule is never forget the first rule. And if you can do those things, then you're going to be a happy person.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio, Hawaii.